What if the face you saw on the movie screen was hiding a second life? One that could have changed the outcome of world history. Imagine your favorite Golden Age stars dazzling on set by day, but by night, slipping secret messages past enemy lines or even plotting to bring down dictators. Sounds like Hollywood fiction, right? Think again. How deep did the double lives really go? And which icons turned spycraft into their ultimate role? Stick around, because the answers will make you rethink everything you thought you knew about old Hollywood. Josephine Baker. Picture this. The hottest ticket in Paris, a singer who could electrify a room with just a glance. But when war erupted, Josephine Baker became more than an entertainer. She became a full-blown spy. Baker didn't run when Nazis occupied France. She doubled down. Armed with nothing but her wits and her celebrity, she waltzed into embassies, schmoozed with high-ranking officers, and left with pockets full of secrets. Her trick? She wrote coded messages with invisible ink on her sheet music and smuggled classified documents inside her costumes. No border guard would dare frisk the star of the Folies Bergère. Baker even hid resistance fighters and weapons inside her country estate, turning her chateau into a real-life secret headquarters. She put her life on the line, knowing that exposure meant death. And her efforts paid off. Her intelligence was credited with helping Allied advances across Europe. Charles de Gaulle himself pinned medals to her chest when it was all over. Forget stage fright. Baker stared down the Gestapo and made espionage look effortless. The world applauded her for her singing and dancing, but it was the secrets she carried that truly helped change the world. Christopher Lee. Before he became the master of horror, Christopher Lee was living a story far wilder than any Dracula film. During World War II, Lee joined the British Royal Air Force, but that was just his cover. The real story? Lee was handpicked for the Special Operations Executive, Churchill's so-called secret army. Imagine Lee, with his towering presence and steel-cold stare, dropped into enemy territory to coordinate sabotage and resistance efforts. His specialty? Linking up with local fighters across North Africa and the Balkans, planning missions that destroyed bridges, supply lines, and enemy morale. Lee's language skills and nerves of steel made him a priceless asset. He never spilled the details, even decades later. When asked about his wartime service, he'd just flash that sly grin and say, "I can tell you, but then I'd have to kill you." It wasn't a joke. His missions were classified, his enemies very real. The haunted look he brought to his film roles came from a man who'd truly seen the darkness up close. So, the next time you watch him battle monsters, remember, he once hunted real ones, and he didn't need a script to do it. Marlene Dietrich. Sultry, smoky, and unstoppable, Marlene Dietrich used her velvet voice for more than just wooing audiences. When World War II hit, Dietrich took on a new mission, fighting Nazis with her greatest weapon, her fame. Recruited by America's OSS, she recorded propaganda songs to be broadcast to enemy troops. These weren't just any ballads. Dietrich sang in German, aiming straight for the hearts and homesickness of Hitler's soldiers. Operation Musak was designed to shatter their will, and Dietrich was the voice that haunted the front lines. But she didn't stop there. Dietrich worked the USO circuit, performing for Allied troops on the edges of battlefields, boosting morale with every note. She even risked her life to get closer to the action. For her service, the US awarded her the Medal of Freedom. But the most remarkable thing? Under all that Hollywood glamour, Dietrich was running psychological warfare campaigns that chipped away at the Nazi war machine, one song at a time. She once said she did it for love of freedom. But let's be honest, she did it because she was braver than most men in the room. Sterling Hayden. Sterling Hayden looked like he'd been carved out of granite, the ultimate Hollywood tough guy. But his real-life heroics make his movie roles look tame. When the world went to war, Hayden didn't just enlist. He disappeared into the shadows, adopting an alias and joining the newly formed Office of Strategic Services. Hayden captained small boats packed with arms and agents, sneaking through Nazi-held waters under darkness. He parachuted into Yugoslavia, training resistance fighters and dodging Luftwaffe air raids. His job? to move people, weapons, and information in and out of occupied territory, often while being hunted by enemy patrols. Hayden was awarded the Silver Star for valor, but the war left its mark. He found Hollywood's glitz hollow after the grit of real battle. Later blacklisted during the Red Scare, Hayden said testifying before Congress was the only time he felt like he was acting. The irony? The man who played rebels and outsiders on film was, in secret, one of the most daring operatives of World War II. He fought fascists for real, and he never let Tinseltown forget it. Greta Garbo. Think Greta Garbo was all about mystery and dramatic exits. The truth is, she almost made the ultimate entrance into Adolf Hitler's private circle. After leaving Hollywood for New York in the early 1940s, Garbo didn't just fade into obscurity. She quietly made contact with MI6, the British intelligence agency, through her producer friend who was already working for them. Why Garbo? Hitler was obsessed with her films. British agents wanted to exploit that fixation. The plan? Use Garbo's star power to get close enough to the dictator to possibly end the war with a single bullet. Garbo reportedly volunteered without hesitation, telling friends she'd do it herself if she got the chance. The operation never materialized, but Garbo did help in other ways, lobbying Sweden's elite to stay neutral, arranging safe passage for refugees, and even turning her New York apartment into a rumored safe house. Garbo never spoke publicly about her spy work, but British files confirm she was a behind-the-scenes ally to the Allies. The most silent woman in Hollywood may have had the loudest impact in espionage history. Next time you see her famous stare, remember, she was willing to face down monsters far scarier than any on the silver screen. Noel Coward. How do you outwit a Nazi? With a martini in one hand and a razor-sharp wit in the other, just ask Noel Coward. To the world, Coward was the epitome of British elegance. A playwright, a singer, the life of every party. But in wartime London, he became something else entirely, a secret weapon in a tuxedo. Coward was recruited by British intelligence before World War II even started. His assignment? Play the fool, charm the rich and powerful, and collect their secrets when their guards were down. He mingled with diplomats, politicians, and aristocrats from Europe to the Americas, using his celebrity as a cover to gather sensitive information. Coward's social calendars were really field reports, and his gossipy letters carried hidden clues straight to British spy masters. Hitler's Gestapo put him on their blacklist, not for his fame, but for his effectiveness as a spy. Coward never wanted medals or headlines. He wanted results. After the war, he even turned down a knighthood, saying he'd done nothing heroic. But let's set the record straight. While others fired bullets, Coward fired off barbs, secrets, and the occasional coded message. Sometimes the sharpest mind in the room is the deadliest weapon. Carrie Grant. Think Carrie Grant was just another pretty face in Hollywood? Think again. Under that perfect hair and smooth British accent was a man the Allies trusted to root out real threats hiding in plain sight. Grant used his star status for something way bigger than any leading role. He spied on Nazi sympathizers working right in the heart of Tinseltown. Working for the British Security Coordination, Grant attended the right parties, eavesdropped on powerful conversations, and reported his findings to British intelligence. His inside access let him sniff out Nazi supporters and pro-Axis influencers weaving their way into the Hollywood elite. He didn't just hand over rumors, he named names. Grant even reported on fellow stars who might have been leaning toward the wrong side, making him one of the most trusted civilian assets the British ever had. His espionage was so impactful, he was awarded the King's Medal for Service in the cause of freedom, a rare honor for a film star. Off-screen, he was far more than a charmer. He was a shadowy figure standing between democracy and disaster. Cary Grant didn't just play the hero, he lived it, right under the world's nose. Paul Henreid. In Casablanca, Paul Henreid played Victor Laszlo, the resistance hero every Nazi hated. What most people don't know? He was fighting that very same battle in real life. Born in Austria, Henreid was one of Hollywood's fiercest anti-fascists, using his fame to funnel money and information to the Allied cause. Henreid didn't just make speeches, he put his name and career on the line. He helped raise funds for refugees and even aided Allied intelligence by passing messages and supporting covert operations. The Gestapo put Henreid on their blacklist, and his family faced real danger in Europe. Still, he refused to back down, starring in anti-Nazi films that doubled as wartime propaganda and as rallying cries for resistance. While never a field agent, Henry was the voice and face of freedom both on and off screen. Hollywood loved him for his leading roles, but it was his work behind the curtain, supporting the underground and lending his star power to the Allied effort, that made him a real hero. For Henry, playing Laszlo wasn't acting. It was autobiography. Julia Child. You know her as the queen of French cooking, but before she taught America to master soufflés, Julia Child was knee-deep in something spicier, covert operations. Denied a spot in the military for being too tall, Child found her way into the Office of Strategic Services, the forerunner to the CIA. She started out shuffling files, but her intelligence and attention to detail quickly got her promoted to sensitive posts in Asia and Europe. Her tasks were the stuff of spy novels, managing classified documents, coordinating missions, and even helping to develop shark repellent for underwater explosives. You heard that right, shark repellent for spies. Child rubbed shoulders with secret agents, and her sharp wit and discretion made her a trusted confidant for some of the OSS's most daring planners. She rarely spoke about her wartime work, choosing instead to focus on food and laughter later in life. But declassified files reveal she was the backbone of the agency. Before she ever whipped up a béarnaise sauce, Julia Child was busy stirring up chaos for the Axis. Her recipe for victory? Brains, grit, and a healthy dash of courage. Roald Dahl. Willy Wonka wasn't the only character with a secret plan. Roald Dahl himself was living a real-life spy thriller. Before he wrote children's classics, Dahl was a dashing RAF pilot sent to Washington, D.C. during World War II. But flying wasn't his only assignment. British intelligence had a different mission for Dahl. Use his charm, connections, and good looks to win over America's elite. He wined and dined senators, journalists, and socialites, collecting whispers and planting pro-British ideas exactly where they'd have the most impact. He was so good at it, he earned the nickname the Seducer with a Mission. Dahl's intelligence reports went straight to London and helped shape Allied propaganda. He was more than just a social butterfly. He was a vital cog in the machinery that kept America and Britain aligned. He even worked alongside fellow spy Ian Fleming, the future creator of James Bond. If you ever thought Dahl's imagination was wild, remember this. Before he dreamt up chocolate factories and foxes on the run, he was mixing wit, espionage, and daring into the most crucial real-world stories of his life. Ian Fleming. Think James Bond was just a fantasy? Meet the man behind 007, whose real life was even crazier than his fiction. Ian Fleming, before becoming a best-selling author, was a British naval intelligence officer with a license to plan some of the wildest missions of World War II. Fleming's war record reads like the ultimate spy novel. He devised covert ops, ran black ops teams, and masterminded Operation GoldenEye, an Allied surveillance plan that kept an eye on Spain in case it joined the Axis. Fleming even created a special commando unit called the 30 Assault Unit, sending them behind enemy lines to seize secret documents. He wasn't just calling the shots from a desk. Fleming's network of contacts included SOE agents, OSS operatives, and resistance fighters, all of whom inspired his legendary cast of Bond characters. The famous gadgets and secret codes? Fleming saw them in action, then turned them into pop culture gold. He never bragged about his service, but Fleming's fingerprints are all over wartime intelligence history. He blurred the line between fact and fiction because for him, the real world was already stranger, scarier, and more thrilling than anything Hollywood could invent. John Ford. The name John Ford is synonymous with cinematic greatness. But this legendary director didn't just capture the Old West on film. He risked his life on the front lines for the Allies. During World War II, Ford traded his director's chair for a Navy uniform, running the OSS's photographic unit. His mission? Document the war, train spies in surveillance, and sometimes step right into the thick of combat with a camera in hand. Ford famously filmed the Battle of Midway while under enemy fire, producing footage that not only won an Oscar, but also rallied American morale and changed public perception of the war. But Ford's contribution went far beyond making movies. He debriefed real spies, analyzed enemy footage, and helped devise psychological operations that shaped Allied strategy. His eye for detail made him invaluable, turning every reel of film into intelligence gold. After the war, Ford returned to Hollywood, but his greatest adventure was always what he'd seen and survived off the screen. The line between storytelling and spycraft blurred, and Ford's legend grew even bigger. Robert Montgomery. If you think only tough guy stars get all the secret missions, meet Robert Montgomery, an elegant, sharp-witted leading man who was as brave off-screen as he was charming on it. At the peak of his Hollywood fame, Montgomery walked away from the spotlight to join the U.S. Navy and Naval Intelligence. He wasn't just there to pose for morale photos. Montgomery trained for real combat, served as a liaison between the Navy and the OSS, and helped coordinate covert operations across Europe. He didn't just sit behind a desk either. Montgomery landed on the beaches of Normandy on D-Day, collecting intelligence for American commanders right in the heart of battle. His heroism was real, his nerves unbreakable. After the war, he even served as a communications advisor to President Eisenhower, helping shape how the White House talked to the world. Robert Montgomery's story is proof that courage and intelligence don't always come with a scowl or a trench coat. Sometimes the best spies wear a tuxedo, deliver a perfect line, and keep 1,000 secrets just beneath the surface. Hedi Lamar. Hollywood called her the most beautiful woman in the world, but Hedi Lamar's true genius was hiding in plain sight. During World War II, while dazzling audiences in classics like Samson and Delilah, Lamar was quietly inventing technology that would change the world. Teaming up with composer George Antheil, Lamar designed a radio guidance system that used frequency hopping to prevent enemy jamming of Allied torpedoes. The Navy didn't fully grasp her idea at the time, but decades later, her concept became the backbone for modern Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and GPS technology. Lamar's motivation was simple. She wanted to help defeat the Nazis who had driven her from Austria. She even offered her invention directly to the U.S. government, hoping it would turn the tide of war. While she wasn't sneaking into enemy territory, Lamar's brilliant mind was her weapon of choice. For years, she was dismissed as just a pretty face, but history now sees her for what she really was, a technological trailblazer, a patriot, and a spy whose legacy reaches far beyond the silver screen. Claude Reigns. On film, Claude Reigns made a career out of playing men with secrets, the shadowy figure in Casablanca, the haunted soul in The Invisible Man. But off-screen, Reigns had a few secrets of his own. Before Hollywood, Reigns served in World War I, where he was exposed to gas and nearly blinded. When the world went to war again, he found a new way to serve, quietly supporting British intelligence during World War II. Reigns used his deep connections in the film and theater worlds to gather and share information, helping the Allies craft propaganda that would sway hearts and minds across the Atlantic. Reigns was no field agent, but his role was no less vital. He coached American studios on how to slip pro-Allied messages into movies, and even wrote scripts that would later be used in British information campaigns. Reigns didn't care for medals. He just wanted to see the right side win, no matter how quietly. For a man who made disappearing look easy on film, Claude Reigns was a master at making a difference while staying out of the spotlight. That's true spycraft. Mo Berg was the kind of guy you'd expect to find in a trivia contest, not a spy ring. Ivy League grad, backup catcher for the Boston Red Sox, fluent in a dozen languages, and when World War II broke out, a top operative for the Office of Strategic Services. Berg's cover was perfect. Who would suspect a famous baseball player of being America's eyes and ears in Europe? Berg slipped behind enemy lines under the pretense of goodwill tours and lectures, but his real mission was deadly serious: track the Nazi nuclear program. One of his boldest assignments sent him to Zurich to attend a lecture by Werner Heisenberg, the father of the German atomic bomb. Berg carried a pistol in his pocket and was instructed to assassinate Heisenberg if he thought the Nazis were close to developing a bomb. Talk about a curveball. Berg judged Germany was lagging behind, and Heisenberg lived. After the war, Berg faded into obscurity, refusing to cash in on his exploits or write a tell-all memoir. The world remembers him as a ball player. The intelligence community? They remember a spy who could outthink, outtalk, and, if necessary, outgun anyone he met. David Niven. David Niven had one of the most charming smiles in movie history, but behind it was the grit of a real wartime commando. When WO2 began, Niven, already a movie star, quit Hollywood and went straight back to Britain, rejoining the army as an officer. He wasn't given cushy assignments. Niven trained as a commando, parachuted into occupied Europe, and helped organize resistance cells behind enemy lines. He also served as a liaison for the Special Operations Executive, the same shadowy group that recruited Christopher Lee. Niven was famously discreet, refusing to talk about his war service even after the shooting stopped. What little we do know comes from fellow soldiers, who described him as courageous and fiercely dedicated. He trained agents in sabotage, coordinated secret missions, and never flinched under fire. He returned to Hollywood with a new edge to his performances and a chest full of medals, but never let on about what he'd really seen and done. For Niven, being a gentleman meant never boasting. But for those in the know, he was the real deal, a matinee idol who risked everything for his country. Peter Ustinov. Peter Ustinov could charm a crowd in 5 languages and switch accents mid-sentence, making him one of Hollywood's most versatile talents. But during World War II, his skills weren't just for show. Ustinov was recruited by British intelligence for propaganda and psychological operations. His task? Script and deliver radio broadcasts aimed at Nazi-occupied Europe, using wit and satire to undermine enemy morale and boost Allied hope. Fluent in French, German, and Russian, Ustinov played a vital role as a translator, cultural advisor, and occasional impersonator for the war effort. His broadcasts poked fun at Nazi leaders and sowed confusion among the ranks. Ustinov's ability to mimic voices and play characters turned his wartime radio into a theater of subversion. He even helped debrief resistance fighters and passed along coded messages under the nose of enemy censors. After the war, Ustinov joked that the war had been great training for the stage. But anyone who heard his razor-sharp broadcasts knew he was fighting with words and winning. Ustinov proved that sometimes the sharpest sword in war is a clever tongue. JeanPierre Om. JeanPierre Om was the epitome of continental cool, a French heartthrob who could light up both the Parisian stage and the Hollywood screen. But when France fell to the Nazis, Om dropped everything to fight for his country. He joined the Free French Forces and became involved in clandestine operations across North Africa and later in Nazi-occupied France. Omon's fluency in English and German made him invaluable for intelligence work and covert missions. He led reconnaissance patrols, coordinated sabotage efforts, and even survived being wounded during the liberation of France. Om balanced on a razor's edge. At any moment, he could have been captured or killed by the Gestapo. But he refused to stay away from danger, motivated by a sense of duty that burned brighter than any spotlight. After the war, Om returned to acting, but the experiences never left him. On screen, he always brought a quiet intensity that was rooted in real-life heroism. He was a matinee idol who had truly lived the role of a resistance fighter and survived to tell the tale. Roscoe Carnes. Roscoe Carnes was best known for his quick wit and rapid-fire dialogue in Hollywood comedies. But during World War II, he put his sharp mind to use for the Allies in ways few suspected. Carnes joined the Office of War Information and OSS broadcasting units, producing morale-boosting radio shows and delivering coded messages over the airwaves to resistance fighters in the Mediterranean. His broadcasts were more than entertainment. They were signals, instructions, and secret updates wrapped up in jokes and cheerful banter. Carnes used his celebrity to gain access and to mask the real nature of his work. He met with undercover agents, relayed vital information, and played his part in keeping spirits high both at home and abroad. The enemy might have tuned in for a laugh, never knowing what was really being transmitted right under their noses. After the war, Carnes returned to Hollywood, slipping right back into comic roles. But those who listened closely always knew there was more to his stories than met the ear. He was the comedian who kept the Allies laughing and winning in the darkest of times. Who knew Hollywood's brightest stars hid such daring secrets? Next time you watch a classic, remember, your favorite actors may have been saving the world between takes. Which story blew your mind? Tell us in the comments, hit like, and subscribe for more Hollywood mysteries. After all, the wildest scripts are often the ones nobody ever filmed.